Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Movie Fight Club, where we duke it out about whether a movie is good or not. I am Mandy, and I think The Wizard of Oz is a really terrible movie. In fact, to steal Matthew's words from last week, The Wizard of Oz is trash.
Okay, well, we're going hard already. Oh, by the way, I'm Matthew, and I think The Wizard of Oz is a wonderful film because of the wonderful things it does.
Oh, God, of course you had to do that. Of course. Why don't you tell us what The Wizard of Oz is about?
The Wizard of Oz, it's a 1939 adaptation of L. Frank Baum's novel from 1900. It is the story of a teenager, Dorothy Gale, lost in the fantasy land of Oz, trying to get home and help the friends of Dorothy along the way. Starring Judy Garland in her most iconic role, the film garnered huge critical and commercial acclaim. The Wizard of Oz has inspired many films, stories, songs, books, stage shows. It is considered one of the greatest movies of all time, listed by the British Film Institute as one of its 50 films to see before 15.
That's a lot of alliteration. I have an alternate synopsis of this movie.
Is this your opening gambit?
This is my opening gambit
let's do it.
because I can't get past it.
Given this is episode 2, do we need to remind people the rules? We're going to talk in depth of the film. I love the film. You hate the film. We're going to argue about it.
And clearly there will be spoilers about it.
Yeah, okay.
So, all right. So The Wizard of Oz is nothing more than the tale of a teenage psychopath who kills 2 people and literally skips away from the crime scenes.
Okay.
This movie glorifies violence, it glorifies manipulating people and doing whatever it takes to get what you want.
Okay.
There is nothing family-friendly about this movie.
Okay.
You have no response? You're just going to sit there and laugh at me because you think I'm full of shit and making this up and that I don't believe it.
I'm going to argue with you because, that's Fight Club. You know, that was everything I argued that you said was great about Fight Club, that it doesn't need to explicitly say it. But we're not having that discussion anymore. We're not going to go to that place.
I am not stealing your points from Fight Club. Oh my gosh. Dorothy Gale is a psychopath.
Dorothy does not kill the Wicked Witch of the East. That is a crazy random happenstance.
It absolutely is. It was an accident.
Yes.
She does not bat an eye that someone is dead. She just believes when everybody tells her this person is dead was evil, so it's okay. She's like, oh, okay. And then she literally skips out of town wearing the dead woman's shoes.
Yeah, which do magically appear on her feet. She doesn't actually take the shoes. Magic happens. Things happen to her. She does not kill.
She
does not kill the Wicked Witch of the West on purpose. She's trying to put out a fire like a good citizen, like Smokey Bear told us to do. And it just so happens that water is her one weakness, as we've not been told in the rest of the film.
But she doesn't care that these 2 people are dead. Like, there is no possible way I could accidentally kill a person and then still be like all smiles and yay, and life is so good. Let's just
maybe
skip down the yellow brick road.
If the person had thrown fireballs at you and sicked an army of flying monkeys on you, you might be okay when they accidentally died when you were putting out a fire. However, the problem is you're reading this as a film with a logical sound to it. It's a film intended for children. It's a quest to teach you about growing and understanding and accepting of home. It's a beautiful film that all children of all ages should see, which is why it has lasted. It has this longevity that most films do not get to have. We cannot apply adult mores onto this.
It's insane. Like, one of my notes is, like, I guess I blocked out a lot of this movie.
Right.
Because I do, before I watched it this time, I have very fond memories of The Wizard of Oz. I loved this movie as a child, with the exception of a few really scary parts. The flying monkeys, the forest. I was not about any of that stuff. The stuff that happens in the castle, like, hated it. But the Technicolor beauty of Oz and the Emerald City, I loved it. And the songs are catchy. And it's full of these phrases that have just made it into the vernacular of the world, right? Because it's an American film, but it has exceeded the boundaries of the country of America, right? And so I was a little bit startled when we got to the point where after Dorothy is killed, after the house has landed on the Wicked Witch of the East, and the mayor is like proclaiming her like this wonderful, wonderful heroine to the Munchkins, and they're like, no, wait. We have to prove that she's morally, ethically, legally, certifiably dead. Like every word choice that you could possibly think of to prove that this woman is dead. And then the coroner shows up and pulls out this big certificate of death. And he's like reading from it, except the certificate of death is facing the camera, so we know what it is. Really makes no sense. And he's like declaring this woman dead with all of the like positivity and chipperness in his voice at all. And all I could think of, how is this scene in a children's movie? It doesn't make any sense. It's glorifying the death of someone who we don't actually know is a bad person. We have never seen this person commit crimes. I watch a lot of crime procedurals right now. And the bad person, we always see the bad person doing bad things before the good people put them away, kill them out of defense or whatever. None of that happens here. A house falls on this woman. Dorothy's told she's a bad guy. And then a coroner like skips out of nowhere and sings that this woman is actually dead. And then they start singing Ding Dong, the witch is dead.
Yep. Because Ding Dong.
This is a kid's movie?
The witch is dead. Okay. Yes, I get that in crime procedurals they do have to show you how evil the nice white-collar white man who's killing prostitutes or something is. But if they made them for 12-year-olds, they could probably be a bit more explicit in their telling rather than showing some of that stuff. You don't need to see the nastiness of Gargamel to know that he's not a bad guy. He's not a good guy in the Smurfs.
I'm familiar.
And they are allowed to tell us the witch is dead because the death of that witch is not important to the thing. It's the start of the story. And sets up the conflict with the Wicked Witch of the West. But it is still told from the perspective of a young girl who is herself an unreliable narrator because, you know, if we want to go deep into the film, this is all a dream and a dreamscape where she's putting in her friends and her experiences as she's going through a fever. Hence why the Wicked Witch of the West is not very smart and not very good at what she does. But that's fine.
I don't know. My note just says, Dorothy is very chipper for someone who has just committed murder and had her life threatened. And okay, it's fair. She didn't commit murder. It's more like manslaughter here in the first scene.
She was in control of a flying house. And that's part of the thing. She's just been whisked away to a world that is not sepia-toned by a tornado in her house. Like, the death of the person she doesn't know and the brand new sparkling shoes are almost the least of her worries, given what's just happened to her.
Yeah, I got nothing else to say about it. She's just, it's not right. Her reaction is not right.
Okay. It's hard to say what the right reaction would be to keep this to, 100 minutes, the film length of the time, to make it acceptable.
I was surprised by how short it was. Honestly, I thought it was going to be over 2 hours, and it came in at like an hour 40.
It's longer than most films of the time, and there were worries about people accepting the length of it, not accepting that it had whole modern things. There were bits cut out of it and things they didn't do that were going to sort of very firmly plant it in the era. I think it's been helped by some of that work to keep it to, something we now can still see as a proper film and not go, oh yeah, here's the bit where they do the references to things from the 30s, of which I do not know.
Right. Okay, well, let's talk about Glinda for a second.
Glinda the Good Witch, Kristen Chenoweth in a different life. Yes.
Right. She is basically the worst fairy godmother ever.
She's not a fairy godmother. She's a witch.
I understand
Okay,
that,
good.
but they've set her up for that trope, really, because she comes to rescue Dorothy, kind of. Like, she's summoned by the Munchkins. I get that. To prove that
I'll agree with that.
the witch is dead and to find out if Dorothy's good or evil for the Munchkins. Like, she comes for the Munchkins. I do get that. But then she takes the opportunity to manipulate Dorothy for her own personal gain by putting the slippers on her without actively explaining to Dorothy what is happening and what the slippers are. She gives her no advice on how to survive in this land, just sends her to go see this, I don't even know what word I would use, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. Just follow the yellow brick road wearing these stolen dead woman's shoes so that my enemy can't have the power. That's it. There's nothing good about that. Like, I don't know that she's evil, but she's certainly not the good witch of the North here.
Is she good by comparison to the evil, the wicked witches? You know, it's very easy to not appear evil when you got those two around.
But we don't even know what makes the wicked witches wicked, because we see visually they're ugly and green and dressed in black and they appear scary, but we don't see them do actual bad things at the beginning of the movie.
And she does come in threatening the little dog too.
Because Dorothy just killed her sister. I'd be upset too.
Well, she's not mourning her sister. She's after the power as well. Is this, again, it goes back to the film is from the perspective of a girl. And there is that aspect of the machinations of adults that you're not privy to as a child, you're not allowed into. So while she is getting to do more grown-up stuff, and she's suddenly in a land that's all colourful and everyone loves her and thinks she's amazing. So this is the antithesis of what she has on the farm. She still has this adult thing around her of she doesn't quite get let in on things. So, when her aunt berates the neighbour who's trying to take away the dog, Dorothy's not there for that. Dorothy doesn't get to know what's happening between the adults discussing this thing. So I will still throw down Dorothy herself, unreliable narrator. And knowing
that's a fair point, but I don't think that makes this a good or a bad movie. Like, that point itself has no bearing on whether it's a good or a bad movie.
No, but what it does have as a bearing is it is a perfect film for the audience it's intended for. For teenagers, children, young adults. And I think it does work for even people of our age, because it is pretty beautiful. It does have some wonderful effect stuff, and it has the good songs and the catchiness, and it's kind of funny in places. The funniness, I think, goes down with age, sadly, and probably repeat viewings. But what makes it a good film is it
liquidated her.
Say again?
Oh, you liquidated her.
Yes. Isn't that great? That's such a good line. That's such a good line. It's so funny. But it has this enduring presence because it pitches so perfectly at its intended audience. And that's why there are so many things that have been inspired by this. Years ago, we watched Spirited Away, which is one of Catherine's favourite Japanese films. And that is inspired by this. And at times it is the same story. And it's about understanding what home actually means and taking comfort in the things that you know.
But this movie doesn't show you that you should be taking comfort. It doesn't show you why home is where the heart is, so to speak.
Oh, it absolutely
right?
does.
Because it doesn't. Because the only version of home that we get at the beginning is Dorothy being very upset about Toto, about Miss Gulch wanting to take Toto. And nobody will listen to her. They keep pawning her off to the point where she falls in the stupid pigsty, right, and almost gets hurt there. Her aunt and uncle will not listen to her. They're too busy counting chicks to talk to her when she's clearly in hysterics. And nobody will stop what they're doing to find out what's actually wrong with her. Like, that's not a version of home that's good.
No, but in her absence...
Aunt Em yells at her, and I don't know. I look at it and I see a home life that is not a good home life. And so the movie doesn't explain why she should want to get back to that so badly.
You're right, the aspect that it shows that she is a bother or doesn't get the attention she's seeking, certainly in that moment. And that's why when she gets to Oz, and it is technical, and people love her and say she's doing great things instantly, just by accident. She must be a wonderful witch because she's doing these things. Amazing. But through the film, she sees more that her aunt is missing her, and she remembers the time that her aunt took care of her when she was sick, and that they have taken her and given her a home. And she has these realizations of the long game of it. Not, in that moment, yes, people didn't have time for her, but that home is a caring place, and that by not being there, even though she is now in a place that arguably gives her everything she wants, home is still the place she wants to be. I think you could phrase it as that there is no place like home, in fact.
Could you, Matthew? Could you phrase it that way?
Yes, I could.
I don't know. That still bothers me. I feel like the movie spent too much time telling us things instead of showing us things. And I think that's part of why I have a problem with it.
Okay.
Because they don't show us that home... What... I can't even remember.
There's no place like home?
I know, and you just said it. Yes, there's no place like home. Like, I mean, yes, home is very different from Oz, but I don't understand why, based solely on what they've given us in the movie, I don't see why she wants to go back.
Okay. I think they do give us, like I say, they do the discussions of her being looked after, seeing her aunt all upset about it, and spending time with these friends when they are not working, because obviously it's the same actors playing the friends that she had on the farm. Right. And the friends here, and she is very much in love with these friends. She does enjoy spending time with them, and she has those friends on the farm as well, so she should go back to it. Arguably not go towards the light and come out of her fever and rejoin them all, whether you want to put some very deep readings on this or not.
Right. Just a few other minor points.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay.
Because I came out of the gate with my hand.
Okay.
Dorothy should not be going inside of that wagon with a strange man alone.
Yeah, it's really strange watching that scene now. I think it comes across
it was
very
uncomfortable.
Different. Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that's the way we sort of watch films now, and you sort of expect things to go badly at times. That scene plays very differently.
I will give the movie credit for immediately making the audience realize she's safe with him, because his goal is to get her to go back home. And he doesn't know anything about her except she's a child who's running away, and immediately his instinct is, I've got to help her get home. That's great. I'll give it that. But just the idea that she went inside the wagon with a strange man alone, no. King of the Forest is the dumbest song in this whole movie, and the performance of it is so bad.
It's really strange, because if this was a stage show, I would get that song, because he would be the only character on stage. Maybe there'd be some of the chorus joining in and doing stuff. They'd be changing sets. They'd be getting the set for both the castle and for the wizard on. They'd all be getting changed. They'd be getting ready for the next sequence. That's what purpose this song has. And maybe it was written with a view that we could do this as a stage show at some point. I don't know. But in a film, it doesn't work. And there are times, that's the second half of it, the pacing struggles. Where the first half, the pacing is exceptionally good. It just starts going and then it goes. Once she's had her big singing over the rainbow. But then into the second half, you get a couple of the beats once or twice, too many times, and just, no, we know that he's scared. Stop doing the joke about he's scared. But at the same point, the chap playing the lion, whose name is Bert Lahr, plays the Cowardly Lion, he does give an exceptionally good performance.
No, not in that song.
That song is absolute filler. And it's really a strange inclusion to it, but his bravado, the moment where he comes out and he does his put 'em up, it's great. It's endearing from the off. And you do see this, the point the wizard makes, the difference between the wisdom of knowing when to fight or not, and having the courage to stand up even though you are afraid.
So why is the lion the only one who got a second song?
I would imagine it's editing. I'd imagine the other songs didn't come out as well. Certainly there were problems with the Tin Man getting replaced. I think after they'd recorded the songs, they had to replace it because he ended up not being able to breathe because of the toxic dust coming off the tin.
There was a lot of issues like that with this movie.
There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So the actor actually got replaced because the actor ended up in an oxygen tent for several weeks because he couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And there were definitely issues with the Scarecrow's facial prosthetic that caused him issues, so I don't know if that stopped him. So, actually, no, the Scarecrow, there was a thing that he actually had a different ending. There was an ending with the actual character, Hunk, going off to college. So, again, the sort of diploma and so on, and an implied possible romance between him and Dorothy, which would have built off the Scarecrow, my first friend, you're the one I'm going to miss the most, that moment. Sort of building off that thing.
I know there was an extended sequence to If I Only Had a Brain that they ended up cutting out.
Okay.
There was a whole lot more choreography and stuff. But, yeah, I just think it's weird that they gave the lion this awful song. That's all.
Yeah, it's very much out of place. And it's almost a shame that then The Witch didn't get a song, but it would be a good few years before villains got songs in shows. And they realised, that's where we can actually have some fun. Yeah.
Well, they also had issues with the actress because she got hurt and then refused to film other scenes.
Yeah, I think she had 6 weeks out after the second take of her disappearance. Set her on fire and she got massive burns. So she was out. She then refused to do some of the further stunts, which is good because some of them exploded, damaging her stunt double.
Yeah. This movie was, I mean, if we're talking, if we leave the actual film alone, like the story and the performances, and just talk about the behind the scenes stuff, there's a lot of stuff that was not great for this movie.
Both the sort of tragedies of shows, and you hear about this on films, things going wrong for people and having problems, but then the problematic, what happened to Judy Garland, pretty terrible, basically a life of drug addiction in some ways starts here. With her being told to lose weight and given drugs to lose weight.
At 17, they wanted her to lose weight to look more like a 12-year-old.
Exactly. So, not a good thing. But if we are setting the film aside, and I wasn't going to do it immediately, but I was prepared in case you wanted to discuss some of this stuff, let's talk the legacy of this film and what it means and what it does. I use the phrase Friends of Dorothy. It's hugely important to the LGBTQ plus communities, societies. Represents so much. The work Elton John did off this. Aerosmith have a song based on this, using clips of this. That's wonderful. It's hugely important to many, many people. And then you get work such as Wicked coming off it. You get all the adaptations of it, being allowed to do different things, but partially because this was so successful. This is what people know.
You're not wrong.
It's really hard to weigh that up against what everyone went through making it. And there were lots and lots of difficult things in the making of it.
And some of it was just the trials and tribulations of learning how to make these kinds of movies in 1939. Like, the issues with the makeup were not malicious. It was trial and error. Like, I understand that. Like, and I don't fault them for it. Specifically with the Tin Man, once they figured out what caused the problem, they changed it when the second guy came on. So, I mean, I don't fault them for that. I kind of... I can't say what I want to say without sounding like I'm, like, ragging on the entire population of the world. But this movie has succeeded in mass manipulation of society. For it to have achieved the cult status that it has, when clearly, when I watch this movie now, I don't see those beautiful, endearing, long-lasting things that the rest of the world sees. I have seen them in the past. I have enjoyed this movie. I remember I read the entire book series. I couldn't get enough of it when I was in middle school, somewhere like 7th, 8th grade. And so I was there at some point, but I had to put on a different hat to watch this movie this time. And pardon the pun, but I saw behind the curtain.
Nice.
And I just can't unsee what I saw this time, and seeing the manipulation and the lightheartedness applied to the death of people and not telling the story and potentially having some maybe mental illness depicted on the screen. I don't know. I can't unsee any of those things. Mm-hmm. And for the vast majority of the world to have never seen these things when watching it, either one means I am just crazy myself and seeing things out of nothing, or this film has been very successful in subduing those darker elements and just letting the light remain.
Again, I think you're watching it from an adult perspective. And the good thing is, when we watch things aimed at a different audience, we can watch it in the mindset of that audience and have those expectations. Judge the film on the level it's supposed to be judged on.
Okay.
And I think you shouldn't expect a deep discussion and analysis of the character of the person who's just been killed by a flying house in a film aimed at children. And at the very least aimed at families, if not aimed at children, young adults.
Mm-hmm. In 1939, were studios making films expecting children to be their audience?
Yes.
I feel like we talked about this many years ago when we talked about Snow White.
Exactly. And
I think they made that movie specifically so that both children and adults could enjoy it.
And this film was made because 2 years prior, Snow White had been such a hit. They went, right, what's up for grabs? What can we make? What can we do? And it's lucky in some ways that it ended up with a production where they went, let's make something technically magnificent, as well as, a proficient story or just an adaptation of what the thing was meant to be. Let's actually make it this thing that starts sepia, becomes Technicolor, and does, stuff on screen that had never been done before. And is still, I think, still stands up in a number of ways.
I will give you that. It's a beautiful film to watch. The moment where the door of the house opens and she steps from the sepia house to the Technicolor Oz.
Very clever.
It is beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful.
And there were a number of times like that where we're rewinding it to watch how they did it. Because in the moment, it's not totally obvious. Then you go, oh, okay, so that's two different people. She's actually... The fake Julie Garland is wearing a sepia-coloured gingham dress in a sepia-painted house. It's really clever. Because now they do it with green screen. It would be, or they'd only colorise that bit of the frame anyway. It would all be very easy to do. But when you watch it as an actual production, and one of the things I love about this is how long some of the shots go on for. There's things like Over the Rainbow, which is just her singing. And there's no cut, it's just her singing and performing one of her most famous songs, and it's very well done. But then the whole sequence with the... a lot of the Munchkin sequences, but particularly when the Wicked Witch of the West turns up, and she just turns up in the middle of them, and she's suddenly there, and she wasn't there before. And then she disappears from the middle of them. There's a number of moments like that that are like, oh, that's actually quite clever. Now I rewind it and watch it, yes, I can see the trapdoor there. But it's not obvious when you're watching it in the moment. And it's one of those moments that you would have loved to have been in those first audiences seeing this and going, oh, this is what cinema can be. This is a film.
From a production standpoint, I will concede it's a good production. From a movie/story standpoint, I still maintain it is not.
Okay.
That is my final stance.
It's amazing, and it's one of those things that sort of, whether things stand the test of time or not. This film did not win the Academy Award for Best Special Effects. It was a different film that won it. A film called The Rains Came. Now, I've never heard of The Rains Came.
Neither have
I
I.
have heard of The Wizard of Oz. And I think it's that longevity, that legacy, that whether or not it was received in its time in the right way, whether people appreciated it or respected the leap forward it was suddenly making. You mentioned the phrases from this that are just in the vernacular. And throughout, we do our show Marvelous, and we've been talking about Loki and talking about the man behind the curtain, and we just make it as a throwaway phrase, expecting everyone to get it.
Yeah.
But it's the way we use and describe things. And when you do talk about I'm melting, what a world, it's a phrase you just use when something is melting or on fire or something. We say something's unusual, so I'm not in Kansas anymore. I've never been to Kansas, couldn't point at it on a map. I could point at the country it's in, that's the best thing I can do for you. But, I know that Kansas has tornadoes and farmland.
It's a rectangular bit right in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and there are tons more catchphrases. I mean, even the rally cry, ding dong, the witch is dead. Like, that's made it into so many other pop culture icons. Yeah. To refer to the downfall of a mean girl. Even just something at that base level.
It's a great film for what it is. It's a great film for everything it's brought to the world.
It's a film about a teenage psychopath.
Okay.
So I'm really curious if I am alone in the way that I feel about this movie. And so I would really, really like to find out if any of our listeners also believe that Dorothy Gale is a psychopath, or if you are on Team Matthew and believe that this is one of the greatest films of all time. So we will have polls up on our social media, definitely on Twitter. I'm not sure that we've figured out the kinks of having polls in other places yet. I'm looking at Matthew because he's the one who did the last episode. But you can find us on Twitter at Eloquent Gushing, and we would love to have you tell us your thoughts about The Wizard of Oz.
So, we agreed when we started this that we would alternate episodes between classic films such as this, award-winning films, top 100 films of that ilk, and recommendations from our listeners. So next week is going to have to be a recommendation. So I'm about to hit the random, but if you want to recommend a film, if you say I would love to hear you talk or argue or say why this film is great, why this film is bad, obviously look us up on any social media. We're Eloquent Gushing. To send a recommendation, because I kind of love a recommendation every time. So I'm going to hit the button, and we're going to see, and it's going to come out. It is film number 37 on our recommendations list, Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh. We talked about doing that a lot on PCD, and we never got to it, so I'm interested to watch it.
You've not seen it, have you?
I have not seen it.
So you've not seen this, and we did agree recently that if someone hadn't seen a film, they got to be the fan of that film, because it would be... I think it's hard to watch a film for the first time with a mindset of, and I have to hate this and slate it.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it would be better to watch it and look for the goodness in it and to enjoy it at its level.
Okay.
Which I'm wishing I hadn't said to you recently, because this is one of my wife's favourites and I'm about to have to take it apart. I mean, I can. And I will.
I do not envy being in your house this week.
Last week we revealed whether we had liked the film or not, our true feelings on it. Are we going to reveal this week, or are we going to let people guess what we actually thought, having listened to the episode?
I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other.
Let's leave it.
And we're recording this before the last episode aired, so we haven't gotten feedback yet.
So let's leave this as the difference then. I'm not going to reveal my true feelings. You're not going to reveal your true feelings.
Okay.
And people can tell us what they thought. Do you think one of us is lying? Do you think both of us is lying? Do you think either of us are telling the truth? Again,
right.
Tell us in all the places. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Discord. Many, many places.
Yes. All right. So You're already doing this, Matthew. You're telling folks where we are. So who are we and where can people find us?
We are Eloquent Gushing. We're a podcast network with podcasts about many of your favourite things. You obviously love Movie Fight Club and how good this is. You can listen to Enter the Fold about the Shadow and Bone series on Netflix, I'm going to say. Netflix? Okay.
Yes, Netflix.
Because it's Netflix here, and then I suddenly had a thing of, oh, is it Netflix over there? I'm not sure. You can listen to our show Marvelous, where we've recently been covering the Loki series, and we will be coming up soon with our thoughts on Black Widow and the What If series and other things that are coming out soon. And you can look up eloquentgushing.com to see all the different shows that we do. And if you really, really love us and you want us to keep doing more, you can support us by going to patreon.com/eloquentgushing.
All right. So, Matthew, then who are you and where can people find you specifically?
I'm Matthew. I'm on Twitter at Matthew Rose.
Yes, Matthew. Who are you, Matthew?
How long have you got?
Is your name Matthew?
And Mandy, where can I find you, Mandy K?
We are terrible at this part of the podcast outro. I am Mandy K, and you can find me on Twitter at Mandy K. And I tweet about all sorts of really random things when I find time to tweet at all. But I would love to hear all of your thoughts about The Wizard of Oz, actually. I really do want to hear what other people think about The Wizard of Oz. I'm curious.
It was really interesting watching it with the viewpoint, obviously keeping your viewpoint in mind as well as the viewpoint I had, to be, what is Mandy going to say? What could you critique this for? Where are the problems?
Yeah.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah. This is fun. Absolutely.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with Howl's Moving Castle.